Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is the Cinderella Book Tag. This is something I don't do very often. I'm a small fry booktuber. I don't also get tagged very often, and most of what I do is pretty staid booktube videos that I do month by month or quarter by quarter over and over again. But just recently I was tagged by Joseph Francis Bacon, who of course I'll link to down below, to do this tag. I actually thought he might be tagging me because there is a question that references small fry, so I thought maybe that was why, but I think he was actually thinking of my use of the page 112 tag, which is a tag that I've made into a serial thing for me. And it's also a great way if you're interested in picking reading based off of critiquing a middle page of a book. That would be a great way to do it. And it was brought to Booktube by Sean Breath's Books. But anyway, I am looking at very little battery and possibly little sunlight. Probably not. I think I can make this pretty short and sweet as I go through the challenges. Starting with challenge number 1, it is the Pumpkin Coach. Is there a bookish event or bookish location that you've not been able to get to? Or get to as much as you'd like. Sorry, there seems to be some noise in the unit above me. But anyway, I think this is supposed to reference especially book festivals, and I love book festivals. In fact, I go to 2 annually as much as I can. One being the National Book Festival put on by the Library of Congress, kind of a bigwig deal, well, but free to the public, but a big event. And then an event that's definitely growing in size and stature is the Gaithersburg Book Festival in the spring, which is in a DC, Maryland suburb. I love going to them every year. I also used to go to the Baltimore Book Festival, which there's something a little more homegrown about it. I think maybe a little more indie-centered, certainly more so than the National Book Festival, and a little more so than the Gaithersburg Book Festival. And I think the local Baltimore bookstores get involved as well. And I just remember them closing off streets, and I used to go, and it was pretty fun. I would love to go again. I just would need to carve out the time to get to Baltimore at the right time. Question number 2 is Mice Turn to Horses. Name up to 3 books that are small fry in the book world but mean a lot to you, or name an author who does not get the publicity they deserve. And so for this one, I decided to go with where my mindset has been for the past month or so since, getting into my 2025 wrap-up sort of stuff, and mention Fagin the Thief by Alison Epstein, which was my favorite read of the year, and I wish made a little more of a splash in the broader bookish world, especially because of its similarities to James by Percival Everett, which, was a big book. And, both books take classic literature and take a character who is relatively small and simplified and give them more dimension, although if I had to give my opinion, I think that Alison Epstein did a far more nuanced and compelling job with Fagin than Percival Everett did with James. Maybe a minority opinion, but that might be what this question's all about. Question number 3 is the Glass Slipper. Name a book you loved but either gave away, lost, or left behind and feel the need to replace. In general, I don't think I need to replace books that much. There are a bunch of books on my shelves that I've read before. I'm not a huge rereader, though, to be honest about it. And I feel like, in the spirit of this question, maybe I'd go for one of my favorite childhood authors, Mary Downing Hahn, who wrote a lot of YA literature in the 80s and 90s that I read during that time period. And I feel like maybe I could, in a random moment, just slip those off of the shelf and read them for a little bit of comfort in a spare moment. So I'm pretty sure they're at my parents' house, and I could, just bring them over here as easily enough, or maybe just read them when I'm over there. Challenge number 4 is the Ball Gown. Name a book you have not read, but you've heard about it and thinks it will fit you perfectly. And I don't think this is a complete puzzle fit. But anyway, it is a book that I think if I knew about it as I was doing my anticipated releases video at the beginning of January, I definitely would have put on that list. It's coming out in April, and it is When You See Me Again, a memoir by Rachel Goldberg-Polin. And this is about her quest to save her son and all of the hostages of October 7th. She, out of all of the hostage families, I think is one of the most well-known voices, especially because of her confidence with English and just her general personality. She just was deeply compelling in person and also in the written word in her articles, so I definitely want to read about her experiences in her memoir, which I think does cover some of the events of the last 2 years of her life, including the death of her son Hirsch, who was murdered after almost a year of captivity by Hamas. But also it's about her grief as a parent and just the grief of the situation. And I think anybody who is well versed in October 7th and the plight of the hostages would know Rachel Goldberg-Polin by reputation. Also, Jews are a small community, and Goldberg-Polin and her husband, and also Hirsch himself, had had direct ties to my rabbi and his family. They have some family that live in the Virginia area, and we're in the DC area. So that does, it also has felt somewhat intimate in that way as well, and I definitely want to get to this book. Prompt number 5 is The Fairy Godmother, and it's your bookish godmother prepared to make these 3 books appear in front of you right now. What would you, ask somebody to write for you? And so I did decide to think up 3 prompts for this one. Some of them are kind of repetitive for me. I talk about them a lot in my videos, especially when it comes to Station 11 read-alikes, which for years I've been trying to pick up sort of literary dystopias that have been compared to Station 11 because that book was such a hit when it came out. And in fact, Emily St. John Mandel, I think, has a book coming out later this year. And I'll read that one as well, and I'll probably continue to read-alike books. And I also finally, a couple of years ago, wrote my own read-alike story that was inspired by Station 11. So its draft was Jewish Station 11, and I actually got it published in this anthology, the Days of Awe anthology. And so that was a bit of a win for me, and I guess, sort of a catharsis off my back after all this time of, constantly grasping for this type of content. I finally decided to try it for myself. The next book I think, is either historical fiction or maybe historical fantasy or epic fantasy based off of the Jewish period of history, covering the prophets or the judges part of ancient Israel and Judah, which actually I don't know as much about as I should. I should read enough, some nonfiction about it as well. I do remember a couple of years ago I saw a random Twitter user who was trying to, I guess, promote herself through the pitching hashtags. She was working, I think, on an epic fantasy that was based in part of this history, and maybe we'll see it. I'll keep my eye out for it. I hope if we see a fantasy novel based in this time period, I'd really love it. I guess it's somewhat akin to these 2 books, which I haven't started yet. This is The Scrolls of Deborah and 17 Spoons, and there will be a 3rd one, I think, in this trilogy. This is technically historical fantasy, I think would be accurate, by Esther Goldenberg. But this is more further back in time of biblical history. It's following characters directly related to the matriarchs and the patriarchs, whereas the prophets and the judges are a bit later in history. But something akin to this, but maybe I should read this these while I'm waiting for those. And the final thing I think I will talk about is Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers, because this is another book I should probably elevate to Station 11 status, because I'm really desperate to find a read-alike, although I think this one, it's just not as popular as Station 11, so fewer books get comped to it, but I love this book. This is a generation ship, but the premise is not on, something going wrong with the ship and this desperate survival story. It's wholly about sociology and about competing cultures and what your culture and your personal narratives mean as you go from generation to generation and place to place in this long starship journey. I would love more books like this, so I also keep my eye out for generation ship fiction, hoping it fits this mold. I know Ursula K. Le Guin would be, I think, is a great comp for this. I admit I've read a couple of hers, and I find them challenging, maybe the writing style or just her personal focus, but she has a bunch more maybe I should try as well. Maybe some of them will be in this, more in this milieu. And the final prompt is to tag people, and since this is me doing a traditional tag, I definitely want to tag some people. The first person I will tag is Steve Donahue, because I know in the past he gets very offended when people don't tag him. I don't know if he's done this tag before or not, but it is sort of a tag I think that you could do and redo, so hopefully he'll appreciate it. Another person who has done tags in the past is Hannah from Hannah's Books, and Hannah's also a local to me booktuber, so I feel like, you know, obviously Booktube is a large geographic sphere on cyberspace, but Hannah and I are both in the DC area, so all the more reason to shout her out in case she would like to do a tag. And that about covers it for me now, hoping I'm still online because I'm seeing a slash through my battery. Oh dear. So anyway, I should be back on this channel in the near future with my first AM reading video of February, so stay tuned for that. Hopefully I'll have some reading I can actually share. And if you would also like to, you know, take part in this tag, you know, please feel free to, you know, comment below or, you know, take it to your own YouTube page. I'd love to hear your responses to these questions.